the sentencing for Conrad Murray, and I want to welcome Beth Karras, David Walgren, and Deborah Brazil back to our roundtable here as we discuss what happened. And we just played some sound from you. I want to show it again. When Deborah Brazil was asking one of Conrad Murray's girlfriends about her profession. This was a moment in the trial that a lot of people were talking about. Let's watch it again here.
Acting is a little bit different than a 9 to 5. It's a little bit different. I don't have an office that I go to.
Certainly. Let me
Driving to a casting is my job.
Let me stop you and ask you another question.
Yes.
When you refer to an instrument, what are you referring to?
Myself.
I see.
Myself. As an actor, your instrument is yourself.
Okay, Deborah, the look on your face when you asked, what are you referring to about your instrument? You asked the question everybody wanted to know. What was going through your mind, first of all, when she said that? And secondly, how do you think she helped your case, Ms. Nicole Alvarez?
Well, in answer to your first question, I wasn't entirely certain I had heard her correctly because the answer seemed a bit incredulous. I thought perhaps she was referring to the fact that she may play an instrument. And of course, I felt that it was my duty to inquire further so that her full testimony could be set forth. Secondly, I think that she came to testify with an agenda. I think that the jurors understood her role and her relationship with Conrad Murray through her testimony. I think she illustrated her participation and her relationship with Dr. Murray very clearly through her testimony.
And how did you interpret that relationship? What was her role in your mind?
I think that through her relationship with him, she clearly was interested in the same sort of lifestyle and interested in celebrity that ultimately led Conrad Murray to make the decisions that he made.
Okay. David, I wanted to ask you about one of really the most compelling moments of this trial, and it came in your opening statements when you played that audio tape of Michael Jackson's voice. It sounded so distorted. He sounded outright ill. When you were preparing for this trial and you first heard that tape, what was your reaction?
It had a profound effect on me. It was sad. I found it, that's probably how I would first describe it. It was very sad. It was also, it was repulsive to me that Conrad Murray would be sitting, presumably by the bedside, making this recording while Michael Jackson, his patient, was in that type of condition, and that Conrad Murray his thought process would be that it was proper to record him. And on that point, I would just highlight, this was an iPhone application on the phone that needed to be opened up and activated. The button to have it record had to be pushed. It then needed to be recorded and then stopped and saved at an appropriate time. So I've heard some mention in the media or from the defendant in his media interviews that this may have been accidental, and I just find that absolute nonsense. I mean, this would take an affirmative act to record this on the iPhone. I think it's quite clear that Conrad Murray was seated next to Michael Jackson and was recording him for purposes probably known only to Conrad Murray. But in answer to your question, I found it really sad and very troubling that Conrad Murray, as a medical doctor, would be recording his patient in that manner, and then to just continue 2 days later with another huge volume of propofol being ordered and shipped to his girlfriend's apartment, Nicole Alvarez.
You know, when we talk about that recording, it's interesting you mentioned that point about why it was recorded, because we just talked with Charles Peckham, Conrad Murray's civil attorney, and he said as well at that time that Conrad Murray inadvertently recorded that he didn't even realize it was on his phone. But then you hear what the judge said yesterday about that. The judge making some very harsh statements about why he believes Conrad Murray taped that, saying that he believed it was his insurance policy, that had anything gone wrong with his relationship between him and Michael Jackson, that he would have used it. possibly, he didn't use the words extortion, but for purposes to benefit himself, Conrad Murray. What did you think about the judge calling that idea out to the carpet when it hadn't even come into play during the trial?
Well, I would say I don't know too many other plausible explanations. The recording, again, I do not believe was made accidentally. I think it was absolutely intentionally made by Dr. Murray. It was not made for any sort of medical care. This was, remember, a doctor who did not even keep medical records or notes because he did not want to document what he was doing with this propofol treatment. So certainly he would not be making an audio recording for any type of legitimate medical notation or record keeping. So you're left with trying to determine for what reason did Dr. Murray make this recording, and not only make it, but clearly keep it on his phone. The recording was made in May. It was not recovered from the phone until some months later. So he kept the recording. And, you know, I don't know any other plausible explanation. The judge was quite convinced that that was the reason for it to be made. And I have not heard or been offered any other explanation that makes sense to me.
David, I want to move into another area, and that is the Jackson family. What was it like to deal with the Jackson family? Michael's family, one of the most famous families in America.
Well, Beth, I'm not going to comment on any personal conversations or dealings I had with the family. I would say that they were a very kind, supportive family to deal with. They were nothing but cooperative and supportive throughout the process, encouraging and gracious. And so my dealings, I would just summarize, were extremely pleasant. I had great sympathy for what they had gone through and what they continue to go through. And they were just, again, just very kind and supportive and concerned, as any victim's family would be, about the process. They were very concerned about the trial becoming, again, a trial about Michael Jackson rather than Conrad Murray. And they were just very interested and supportive throughout.
So this trial catapulted you and Deborah into the spotlight. Can you take us behind the scenes? Were you getting mail from people, fans or other people, as a result of the trial?
You know, there were several unique things that happened throughout the process of this case, not the least of which were the airplanes that flew outside our 17th floor office space, carrying banners with various messages from Michael Jackson fans and others. Following the conviction, letters from all over the world have been mailed to us, letters of gratitude and thanks for presenting the case as we did and for getting what many felt was the only just verdict, which was a guilty verdict. So there has been a tremendous amount of letter writing post-verdict that we've received, and again, you know, just a lot of attention to the case from Michael Jackson's fans all over the world. They were outside the building when I would come in to the building in the early morning hours when it was still dark outside. They would be lined up waiting to get into the courthouse. They would be lined up in the hallways outside of the courtroom. So it was, yeah, just very unique in that their presence was just so consistent throughout.
And breaking out into applause when you and Deborah would leave the courtroom sometimes. What was that like?
Again, very unique. Nothing I've ever experienced, particularly toward the end of the trial, as the crowds grew larger on the 9th floor. That happened a number of times, and it was truly a unique experience.
Well, I still have more questions. I want to talk to you about some of the decisions made during the trial. So we still have to take another break. And back to you now, Christy.